Do you want a little extra nonsense in your games? Well then, I think I have the perfect product for you. Hello everybody, welcome to Literary DM, where we talk media and literary theory and apply to tabletop RPGs, and today we're taking a look at Jeff's Compendium of Nonsense. Jeff's Compendium of Nonsense was made by Jeff, the patron of Biscuits, on Twitter. The product is available on his Ko-Fi, which will be down in the comments below. All of the products that I have reviewed so far have had a nice consistent theme to them. The Wild and Wacky Wigs had, well, Wild and Wacky Wigs. The Lexicon had a nice grouping of words together, thesaurus and lexicon style to help out dungeon masters with their wording. This product is interesting, as it almost attempts or seems to come across as something that would come out from Wizards of the Coast, because each volume, and so far there are going to be 6, one coming out in November, is that all of these volumes have a collection of both feats, spells, potential new environmental hazards that you can come across, as well as even a list of potential NPCs. It looks like it's trying to come across as something that could come from Wizards, and for that I think it's highly commendable. And it kind of fulfills the moniker of being a compendium of nonsense. You really don't know what you're going to get with every single volume, as it seems to be a collection of just things put into one giant packet. You have one volume that will have a collection of weather events, various spells and items that are tied to that, as well as potentially even tying it to elements of known as the corrupted, and so on and so forth. Each volume attempts to follow a specific theme, and for that I think it's actually very easy to follow to a certain degree. And more on that later. I actually do have a little bit to say about the following, and because it can get kind of difficult at times. And then volume 6, we actually get a deep dive into a racial option. The racial option being that known as the Nephilim. And if that name sounds familiar to any of you, because, well, the name derives from the Old Testament, how is it on par with the rest of D&D 5e for the races? It's actually pretty on par. It's not overly strong, but it's not underpowered. It's probably underpowered in comparison to a lot of the ancestries that have come out recently, but given what was coming out a few years ago, I could definitely see something along these lines come out with D&D 5e. So if you have one of these at your table, you're honestly not going to break your game. It is actually an incredibly well-balanced race and very well thought out, and can also add a lot of mythology and lore to your world. And I think that's what really captures my interest with this race. I personally may not call them Nephilim at my table. I may call them something else because, well, that's just how my world would work. But honestly, this opens up a lot of possibilities. You can even work it into the plot of your game in some capacity and potentially bring in some intrigue regarding the heavens and the hells. Could very be interesting. So for lore-wise and even mechanically, I think Nephilim are probably the strongest elements of this 6-volume series. That being said, there are a lot of strengths within these 6 volumes. The fact that there are actually feats that are tied to specific ancestries and lineages, I absolutely love. I love most subclasses, spells, or potentially even feats that are limited to a specific race. To me, that really helps the world feel alive, because that means there are certain traditions or archetypes that are not taught outside of that specific race because they are sacred. This is one of the reasons I actually really like the Blade Singer in D&D 5e because of the lore attached to it. And yes, I will be making a video regarding the Blade Singer at some point, because while it is not the greatest for a wizard, I do think the Blade Singer, lore-wise, has a lot of merit for your games. But that's the Blade Singer. We're talking about this book right now, and honestly, I actually really do like this book. The reason why I like it is because there is a lot of content within the book. If you find one volume that you're not necessarily thrilled on, odds on favors, there's going to be something within all 6 volumes that you are going to find that you are going to want to use in your games. The part that really caught my interest was actually all the weather features. There's one that involves weather features with spells. That is fascinating, how spells can impact the weather and alter it to almost create an arcane storm. That is fascinating, and I'm certainly going to be using that at some point, and who knows, it may appear in my Zelda D&D campaign at some point. But despite there being a lot of good content within here and a lot of really well thought out spells that add spice to the game, as well as items that have clear attachments to the world and even encouragement on how to make them work in your world, The biggest issue I actually think is actually the writing itself. The title makes it very clear this is going to be a little bit more of a wacky-go-lucky type book. That's made evident, and you're going to 100% get that. Unfortunately, because of the writing, it almost gets away from itself a few times. And by gets away from itself a few times, what I mean is that there are some instances where it seems to be almost focused on being funny and quirky and less just giving you the raw information. There are some times within spells, there'll be a lot of text of someone talking to another mage, and this mage suddenly disappearing, so this other mage named Jeff has to keep talking. It honestly gets a bit much at times, especially when you're reading in one sitting, and it can almost become hard to follow. The information is there, you just have to pick it out and maybe jump down a few sentences to get past the quirky intro for the millionth time. I am all for having text within these kind of books where the wizard or the person writing it is actually directly talking to the reader. Tasha's, Xanathar's, Mordekainen's, all these books have portions where the writer is directly talking to the reader. I actually really like these elements because they feel like I'm looking into a portion of the world. They add personality to the book, and also you can kind of hear their voice. However, between those moments, vast majority of what you're getting is just raw information. It makes it very clear to the reader what's the information and what's the flavor text. And this is where the writing, as I said, gets away from itself, as it combines two. So it can be confusing for the reader to sift out where's the flavor text and where's the raw information. And the reason why I'm spending so much time focusing on this is that I do think it is a big issue. I personally did get lost at times, trying to figure out what was the correct information and what was the flavor text. And oftentimes, I did find myself skipping those portions. Which is a shame, because there's a lot of clear personality and thought to it. There's a lot of, this is a quirky mage reading this, which I am all for and I absolutely love. I love that archetype. But there needs to be a point where that needs to be dialed back and just give the information. And when that information is there and it's just presented, this book is solid. There's a lot of personality within it. It can provide a ton of stuff for your games. And honestly, if you find one thing that you don't like, odds on favors, you're going to find an item, feat, spell, feature, race, NPC that you're going to love. This is 6 volumes of content going out to almost 30 to 40 pages. You are going to find something. So if you're at all interested, again, link to his Ko-Fi will be down below. I think it is well worth checking out. Well, everyone, that's the video for today. I hope it was helpful for you in some way, shape, or form. If it was, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. All that helps us grow. As well as, more importantly, check out the link down below to Jeff's Compendium of Nonsense. And let him know that Literary DM sent you. This is by no way sponsored in any way, shape, or form, but it definitely provides general information. But with that, everyone, until next time, keep rolling those dice.